All right, let's do some examples for writing an expression. So this first one says to write an expression which represents the quantity. Well, what does it mean by quantity there? That's referring to what's right here. 8 increased by 3. Okay, that is representing a quantity. And so we kind of need to break that down to write that as an expression. So we already have the number 8. Okay, so that's good. We can just put that there, 8. But then we need to figure out, what does this phrase increased by mean? What is that representing in terms of a mathematical symbol? Well, if you remember from our notes, the words like increased by means addition, or is similar to addition. So when it says 8 increased by, we'll do 8 plus and then 3. 8 plus 3. That is an expression that has numbers and symbols that represents the quantity 8 plus 3, or 8 increased by 3. If you think about it another way, if I have 8 of something and I increase that by 3, I'm doing 8 plus 3. Okay? So that's one way we can write the expression. Let's look at another example. Write an expression which represents the quantity. Twice a number n. All right, now this one looks a little bit different. There's no number symbols here. We have twice, okay, which we know that's related to a number, but what number is that going to be? And we have this thing, a number n. Okay? Well, what is that n? Remember we talked about in the video how symbols and letters represent things that are unknown or things that are changing, and we call that a variable. And so when it says twice a number n, it's referring to some unknown number. Now let's break it down. What is this twice? Okay? What's this twice? If you remember from our notes, again, when we see that word twice, that is indicating multiplication. And specifically, something happens twice, that happens 2 times. So this is saying that we're doing twice a number, so that's 2 times a number. Okay, that number is happening twice. Okay? So I'm going to write that as 2n. Okay? Now let's talk about that for a second. The twice is where our 2 is coming from, and our number n, our variable n, is right there. But why did I write them just together? Well, you could write them like 2 times n. Remember that dot represents times, or you could write it 2 times n, where that little x represents times as well. Or actually, you could even write it like this, with parentheses. That is also twice the number n, 2 times n. But something that we learn when writing math is that we don't have to do any of this, okay? Because if we just put a number in front of a variable, that indicates multiplication. Okay? We can write it like this, okay? 2n. That's what twice a number n is. So all of these over here off to the right are correct ways of writing it, but this is the way that we're going to learn to write it in algebra, where the number goes right in front of the variable, and that means multiplication. Let's look at another example. Write an expression which represents the quantity. A number x decreased by 10. So again, we have an unknown number x, our variable x, and it's decreased by the number 10. Okay? So we've got our x here, that's our number x, and we're going to decrease it. Okay? Remember from our notes, the decrease is subtraction. So I use the subtraction symbol, minus, and then 10. So a number x decreased by 10 would be x minus 10. And if you think about it, if I have some number, hey, whatever that number is, in this case x, hey, because it's unknown, if I want to decrease that by 10, I'm just going to subtract 10 away, or take 10 away from that. And so that's how I can write that expression, x minus 10. Okay, last one. Write an expression which represents the quantity. The number of tablespoons in K cups. Okay, this one's a little bit different. We have to think about it a little bit. So when it says the number of tablespoons in K cups, we actually need to know how many tablespoons are in 1 cup. Okay? And now you could look this up, or maybe you know it. Maybe you really enjoy baking and you know it. But what we can find, and honestly I just Googled it because I didn't know it, 1 cup, 1 standard baking cup is equal to 16 tablespoons, and that TBSP is how we abbreviate tablespoons. So 1 cup is equal to 16 tablespoons. Okay? So we need to know that information for this problem. So we're going to write the expression to figure out the number of tablespoons in any amount of cups. That's what that K cups means. There's an unknown. We don't know how many cups we have, but we can write an expression that represents that to find the number of tablespoons. And so one word that you really have to pay attention to is of, and that one's always a tricky one. If you remember, of is related to multiplication, and that one's a tricky one that you have to really pay attention to. So when it says the number of tablespoons, okay, in K cups, so we know we have K amount of cups, and if I want to know the number of tablespoons in that K cups, I have to take that multiplied, okay, multiplied because the of, times the number of tablespoons that are in 1 cup. So that's 16K, or 16 times K. Okay. So if you think about it, if I have 1 cup, so if K was 1, I would take 16 times 1, and that would be 16 tablespoons, right? 16 tablespoons times 1 cup equals 16. If I had 2 cups, I would take 16 times 2, okay, and that would give me 32 tablespoons. There'd be 32 tablespoons in 2 cups. Okay? That's what that expression is representing. K represents any number of cups. And then the 16 is multiplying by the number of tablespoons in 1 cup. Okay? And that of word, again, told us that we were going to have to multiply something to show the relationship between tablespoons and cups. Okay? That one's a little bit trickier because you had to think about, okay, am I going to multiply, am I dividing here? Again, that of word is what told us that it was going to be multiplying, and it's showing the relationship between tablespoons and cups. But the idea is one, we're looking for what operation, so we're looking for the word that tells us the operation, and then we're looking at, do we have variables, do we have numbers, what's going on? And then that will tell us how we can create our expression.